Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance on the Central Coast. We're joined by Fred Strong. He is the Mayor Pro Tem of Paso Robles. And sir, I recently covered the National Association of Counties Convention, NACO.
Okay,
you
yes.
Probably know the organization.
Yes, I know it well.
And I was amazed to learn that it's not only in California that county governments have such a significant role in the day in and day out affairs of us.
Oh, yeah.
And yet we always will turn to our mayor and say, Mayor, why did this happen? And yet the mayor of the city, he has no involvement in that. The mayor pro tem, no involvement. It's a county issue, it's a state issue, it's a federal issue. Talk to us about what you see and hear on that front.
Well, that constantly happens. We have something called public comment at every council meeting.
Right.
And people can come in and talk about anything that's not on the agenda.
Right.
We try to tell them that's within our jurisdiction, and they don't understand that part.
Right.
So we get comments about, why are you rationing our water if we have enough water, as an example. And we say, because the state told us we have to. Well, that doesn't make sense. Do something about it. I want my water. And we have to say, I'm sorry. If we do that, if we don't follow state law, they will fine us, and that will cost you your tax money, and that means you will have reduced services.
Right.
And they don't understand what our area of jurisdiction is frequently.
I have to be honest with you. I think in some ways we in the media are at fault, and I'll tell you why. I think that the title mayor is a title that we can gravitate to. It's an executive. Whereas supervisor, well, it's a title that's tricky to understand. Maybe there's a chair of the board of supervisors, but again, it doesn't feel like a position of leadership.
Well,
when the reality is, look, we love what you do, but supervisors have much more power.
In some ways. And also, when you talk supervisor, you're talking the equivalent of city council member, okay?
Right.
Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, the equivalent of mayor.
Right.
One for the unincorporated area for some things like land use and policing, but also for the entire county, including the cities, especially in social services, as an example.
But that's the key, is that, how much can Paso Robles do about homelessness? Well, some, but it really is a function of the county. How much can they do with mental health?
Well, and also, when we talk homelessness, it's not just the county, it's the people themselves.
Well,
it's the nonprofit organizations, it's the builders. Are we building adequate supply of housing so that we have that upwards mobility effect? Because frequently the low end of the spectrum move into those houses vacated by people who are in upward mobility, moving into the newer housing.
But I guess what I'm saying, aside from, how we can fix the homeless situation on a much grander scale, there is a confusion amongst us about what role and which entity impacts our efforts every day. I mean, look, we're in the middle of a presidential election.
Yes.
Would you agree with me that really in the final analysis, the governor of California has much more impact on our lives than the president of the United States?
Probably on a day-to-day basis, yes. On a day-to-day basis, absolutely. Absolutely.
We are 50 states.
Yes.
And so, but I don't think we realize that, do we?
There's a lot of things people don't understand about their government. I mean, we live here, we are used to being a free people.
Right.
And we think that means we can do whatever we want, which isn't true. Because every freedom carries with it a responsibility.
Right.
And your freedom ends where the next person's begins.
Right.
And that's a limitation unto itself. Okay? So we have certain rules for property, and people have rights. The Bill of Rights is specific to that. And a lot of controversy over that, especially when we get to the right to bear arms. Even freedom of the press has some controversy, because people say, well, they have to print that. No. What it means is they can print what they want as long as it's within certain rules. They can't slander, they can't libel you, et cetera, et cetera. But people don't understand the levels of government and how they function, generally speaking. And that's not true of all people. But I found that on the average, people live their daily lives and they can't be bothered with this stuff.
Right.
They want to know how much money they're going to earn, how much the cost of their house is, how much their food is going to cost,
And by the way,
etc.
this is not a criticism.
Oh,
I'm
no.
not criticizing.
No, not at all.
It's just, like
A fact
you
of life.
said, we just want our lives to march forward.
Right.
And, we'd like government to not get in the way.
Right. And when we get to the homelessness, we see these people, we don't want them around. But they have rights. They are human beings.
You know
and we
this.
don't necessarily know the cause of that homelessness.
And it's not a crime to be homeless.
No, it's not a
That's what
crime.
people need to remember.
Right.
Is that someone merely being homeless, yeah, you could talk about trespassing, maybe. But what we've learned about that issue is that we can't arrest our way out of homelessness.
No, not only that, actually arresting them is going to cost you more tax money than if you just leave them alone. As long as they are not taking your property or injuring you.
So let's talk about property, because when we think about Paso Robles, boy, has that community blossomed.
Yes, it has.
Over the last 10, 20 years. And it's blossomed through the wine industry. It's blossomed through a whole host of factors. But then there are folks that are saying, wait, like you said, we're in a drought. Should we be allowing more vineyards to be popping up? And, I don't want that marijuana field in my area, even though state law says that he can grow marijuana.
And neither of those issues have anything to do with us. Because when you're talking about those vineyards, generally speaking, they're in the unincorporated area and they have a right because that's agriculture. And oddly enough, wine grapes are defined by the federal law as a food, not as an alcoholic beverage.
I mean, it's just brilliant.
And people don't know this. When we talk about marijuana, that's going to be on the ballot, I'm sure, in November, and we'll see where it goes. But there's still going to be regulations. And we at the local level do have some rights in that area.
Well, you have land use authority.
We have some land use authority that the state allows us to have, because there have been some bills pending that would limit our ability to regulate the growing of marijuana even within our city limits. And we're working through the League of Cities, which I participate in. We're working very hard on making sure we can maintain local control in that area so that we don't have a situation where children or those that don't know any better are tempted to just harvest some of their neighbor's crop for their own use or whatever.
But Prop 64, the initiative you mentioned, does it give the latitude to locals? I mean, that's a problem with voter initiatives. They're not drafted by
voter
experts.
initiatives have to be interpreted ultimately by the courts as to just how far they can go and be constitutional. And there may be a constitutional problem in that area. That will be decided by the courts. That again, isn't our jurisdiction. Our jurisdiction as an elected local official is policy. In fact, we're not even in charge of how that policy is administered. That falls to the city manager, the city employees.
That's another one. I am confident that if you asked 100 people in Paso Robles, who has more power, the mayor or the city manager? And when I say power, I don't mean it in kind of a power-hungry way. They probably don't even know the word city manager.
Well,
I mean,
many of them maybe not.
And again, not a criticism.
No, and what they don't understand is by law, we are not allowed to interfere with the actual operation of the city. As city councilmen, we can set the policy, but it is up to the city manager and his staff, who he is in charge of, to administer that and apply it, make it work. Now, if it's not working, if they're doing something that's really not what we intended at all, then we as a council can clarify the policy. And again, once we've clarified the policy, it's back in their lap to administer it according to the way we told them to.
He is Fred Strong. He is a member of a city council in San Luis Obispo County. That city is called Paso Robles. My name is Brad Pomerance. We're coming to you from the Central Coast on Charter Local Edition. It's a great conversation.